You know, when I said back in my first video, why am I supposed to care about this show again? Because there might be Clone Wars flashback? I was joking. I didn't think that they would actually stoop this low. It's never felt so bad to be right. Anakin's horrifying CGI monster face is present and accounted for, but that's all you need to emotionally manipulate prequel fans apparently. Only he isn't acting like Anakin from those movies. He doesn't talk like him, he doesn't sound like him, and his mannerisms are entirely different. Why is that? Well, it's because Hayden's mimicking the Clone Wars portrayal. You know, the version that exists to retcon the prequels and prove to George Lucas how to write a character arc. We've got horrifying CGI amalgamations of Anakin acting like a cartoon character, and the result is complete dissonance where he doesn't quite feel like either the animated or live action version. It is crazy to me that prequel fans will so desperately defend this episode and talk about how great it is to see Hayden again when he isn't even acting like the character from those movies you love so much. This is an idealized version of that character, the one you've built up in your heads to pretend he was in the prequels. They are quite literally insulting your favorite Star Wars movies and you are praising them for it. The thing about prequel shills is that they love themes, they love concepts, they love the idea of Anakin. Details like consistency, acting, and direction don't matter as long as he says the thing.
One is never too old to learn, Snips.
Now, I don't like prequel Anakin, but to have him not portray that character sincerely here was completely cowardly. Ironically, it would have done a better job of bridging the gap between Clone Wars and the movies if they had, but no, the fans don't want consistency, they want the safest possible version of the product they love. The Clone Wars scenes have no thematic or plot relevant place in this episode. Dave Filoni just wanted an excuse to say, hey guys, look, it's the thing. It's like that show that you like, remember? Apparently that's enough to set the internet on fire for a week and make Star Wars theory cry tears of joy. Woohoo! Millions of dollars are being invested into making Star Wars fan fiction, and I am convinced we are living in the worst timeline. Let's touch on Anakin's lesson, quote unquote, live or die. Is this supposed to represent Ahsoka fighting for her life as her body dies, her mind fighting against the death of her body, or is it just perfectly vague enough to incite speculation in place of any actual theme? Well, let's find out. We are given our first Clone Wars flashback, and there is so much to hate about this. Ahsoka's young child actor is terrible. I've seen so much praise for her, and I have to ask, what is your frame of reference for good acting? Have you ever seen a good child actor? Jonah from Ozark, Millie Bobby Brown, Jason Walton, these are some good child actors. This is not that. And her costume design, bro. The headdress looks even worse on a child than it does on Rosario somehow. Sometimes participating in conversations about this show online make me feel like an insane person. I genuinely don't get where people are coming from. While we're talking about superficial complaints that people portray as positives, the clones. Why do we have a bunch of extras in cheap looking plastic armor jogging through a field? They look so clunky and goofy. In an interview about Attack of the Clones, George Lucas talked about how he had VFX artists and mocap for the film and he didn't like the way they came across. So, in Revenge of the Sith, he had actual seals and mocap, which is why we got cool moments like this. But hey, I guess learning from our mistakes isn't something Dave Filoni cares about. To give the episode some credit, I think the fight between Anakin and Ahsoka is good enough. The choreography is perfectly adequate. Even I am not immune to Anakin in a decent lightsaber duel, but the constant talk of life or death and Ahsoka inheriting Anakin's legacy is completely out of the blue. In fact, her whole arc in the Clone Wars is about transcending both the Sith and the Jedi, forging her own path, not unlike Luke. So to imply her legacy is one of death feels redundant, and I'm left to wonder what was the point in this? Clickbait. There's nothing more to it than that. Maybe if Ahsoka had any established arc she was going on in the show, they could have grown on that. If Ahsoka had showed introspection about her legacy prior to this episode, I could have excused it, but of course, she hasn't. The next 50% of the episode is dedicated to wasting the audience's time. A Republic fleet shows up to argue with Hera's team, and Ahsoka kidnaps a space whale to fly to another galaxy. True story. It takes roughly 30 minutes to achieve this. Whatever show. If I dedicate any more time to thinking about this, I might have a stroke, so I'm gonna have to leave it there. On to episode 6. It starts with our villain crew, plus Sabine landing in the new galaxy. I gotta say, visually, the hyperspace ring is absolutely breathtaking. I don't care about the wider lore implications of this sort of technology existing, but it looks incredible here. For once, the plot is actually moving somewhere. Slow down, show. I can feel my heartbeat. Let's not get too excited. I really like the quiet moments between Shin and Baylan as they talk about their greater plans. Again, the familial relationship between them is a breath of fresh air from the usual Sith dynamic, and I'm finding it really hard not to root for them over Ahsoka and Sabine. On another note, how is Thrawn's uniform so immaculate after living on a deserted mud hole for 20 years? I guess it's safe to assume the Night Sisters have dry cleaning, huh? That aside, Thrawn is a welcome addition to the show. His dry grin and muted delivery are sinister as Vader himself. The way he toys with Sabine's emotions, provoking her and refusing to be antagonized by the bratty retorts, was incredibly satisfying. But of course, we can't have too much time actually enjoying ourselves, because next we are treated to Sabine going on a side quest to find Ezra, and although I understand why this is happening, it could not be any less engaging. The show has a tried and true habit of wasting time as often as possible. The reason Sabine is allowed to go find Ezra is because Thrawn wants to kill both of them once she does, tasking Baylan and Shin with doing so. My initial thought when hearing this was, why does it matter whether they die or are left stranded on the planet, which Thrawn even confirms himself that it doesn't matter. So why then send 2 Sith after Sabine? If it doesn't matter what happens to them, and you even admitted yourself that soldiers are scarce, why waste 2 incredibly powerful Force users like this? Is it to waste our time? I think it might be to waste our time. Sabine then spends around a third of the episode hanging out with humanoid space turtles who don't speak English, and it's like this show is afraid of fun. I can't tell you how much I wanted to skip this one. Get to the point already. Speaking of the point, Ezra. He's here now, looking like Space Jesus in all his hobo glory. Oh, and look at that, the episode is over. Never too soon if you ask me. I don't have anything left to say on these ones. Feel free to shout at me in the comments. I read those. I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye.